Kia ora Year 12. In this video, I'm going to go pretty slowly through the 5 questions in the checkpoint test that my class did on Friday. So this is focused on level 2 trig, and it's just looking at non-right angled triangles, nothing to do with sectors or segments or arc length. There are 5 basic skills that are covered in these questions, and what students were told to do was to find all the missing angles and lengths of the 5 triangles we're going to look at, and to find the areas. So I'll just quickly flip through what we're going to do. So there's question 2, another triangle, another triangle, another triangle. All of the triangles have slightly different information, and the hardest part of the standard is working out what we do know and what we don't know, and then figuring out where to start. So a couple of things that really help are to remember that often if we have 2 angles, we can get the third angle because the angles in a triangle add to 180 degrees. And that's often the starting point if you just can't see what to do. The next thing to think about is that if we can use the sine rule, that's usually the easiest one to do. Now, to use the sine rule in a triangle, so lots of bad triangles drawn in this, guys. I'm doing this quite quickly, so they look pretty shocking. But what we need to use the sine rule is we have to have an angle and we have to have the opposite side. So we're always looking, first of all, for whether we've got an angle and an opposite side pair. If we have, then we can find an angle or we can find another length. And you'll see that in these questions. Now, if we haven't got that, then we end up using the cosine rule. And you're given the formulas for those things, but I'm going to write them out straight up now. So the cosine rule is a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times cosine of a. That's the version we use for finding a length. Notice that that gives me a squared, not a, right? And then if we're finding an angle, we're looking for angle A. The formula here gives me cosine of A, and it's going to be b squared plus c squared minus a squared divided by 2bc. And it's pretty straightforward from level 1 algebra to get from here to here, but I've written them out separately. Okay, onto the sine rule. Well, if we're looking for an angle, the version that we usually use is this one here. And if we're looking for a length, we use this. And everyone's done lots of practice at separate skills, but some of you are finding it really hard when you're confronted with a triangle to know where to start. And the last formula is how to find the area of a triangle, but I'll just do that when I get to it. All right, let's have a look at question 1. This is going to be too slow for some of you, so put it onto double speed and make sure you're doing your working as I go. So when I'm looking here, the first thing I notice is that I've got an angle. I ask if I've got the opposite side, and I have. That tells me that the sine rule is going to help me here. So there are different places that we can start, but I decided that I would start with finding angle A. So we have sine of A over 2.6 is equal to sine of 48 degrees divided by 4.3. When I rearrange that, this is what I get. I get sine of 48 degrees times 2.6 divided by 4.3. When I put that into my calculator, the number that comes out is not my answer. It's sine of A, right? And that's a decimal. So 0.44934, blah, blah, blah. Do not round this too hard or things are going to screw up. And you're going to hold that answer in your calculator. And then A, the angle, is going to be sine inverse of that number. And in this case, it gives me 26.7016 degrees. And I'm going to round that to 26.7 degrees. And that's fine to round that at this point. What I don't want you rounding too soon are any of the lengths that we find. So now we've got angle A. It's very easy to get angle B. So angle B comes from my year 9 rule, 180 degrees minus 48 degrees minus 26.7 degrees, which gives me 105.3 degrees. Next, we can use either the sine rule or the cosine rule to get that third side length. So I'm just going to get rid of the stuff here. I'm going to do this both ways. Nearly everyone who did this well in my class used the sine rule, but the cosine rule is good to practice as well. So we've got this angle here, and we've got this angle here. And we're looking now for this side. So we know that angle B is 105.3, and we're looking for side B. So using the sine rule, we have B over sine of 105.3 degrees is equal to the same as what we had to start with, 4.3 over sine of 48 degrees. To rearrange this, I need to multiply both sides by this. Okay, so we're going to times both sides by this, and we get B is equal to 4.3 times sine of 105.3 degrees over sine of 48 degrees. That gives me 5.5811 blah 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 meters. And I don't want to see people rounding that too hard just yet, because we're going to use it to find the area. So for now, I'm going to leave my long answer with all the decimal places in it, and I'm also going to round it, right? So it's 5.58 meters, but let's just leave this sitting here. If you round it too soon to 5.6 meters, when you go on and use that number later, you're going to lose some accuracy. And sometimes that's going to matter. Okay, so don't round too early. So that's the first way to get B. Now I'm going to do it using the sine rule. Using the cosine rule, right? So this way is using the sine rule. Let's have a look at why I can use the cosine rule now. If we go right back to what we had at the start, we've got this angle, but we didn't have this length. And that means that we can't use the cosine rule, because the cosine rule for a length is this. A squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc times cosine of a. So what we have to have is the angle and the sides that are right next to it. Okay, so think about those sides as being arms that are hugging the angle. That's what we're after. So we've got choices here with how we use the cosine rule now, because we know all of the angles. So the angle that we worked out in here was 105.3 degrees. Let's just take all this stuff off. Okay, so that means that we're good to go with the cosine rule. We're going to say this side, so b squared is equal to these two hugger sides, so 4.3 squared plus 2.6 squared minus 2 times 4.3 times 2.6 times cos of 105.3. And when you put all of that in the calculator, you get b squared is equal to 31.1502. Quite a few of you stopped at that point, right? But we don't want b squared, we want b. So we have to take the square root. So b is equal to the square root of that, which is 5.58 meters. Okay, so now we've found all the angles and we've found all the sides. The last thing to do is to find the area of that triangle. Right, so the area is equal to half AB sine C, which is a half times, let's have a look, 4.3, which we were given, times 5.58 times sine of 26.7 degrees. Now I just want to see where that's come from. So let's go back to see where are each of these numbers, because we have to be careful that we're using the hugger arms, the A and the B sides, with the angle in between. Okay, so on here, to find the area of that triangle, I'm using this side, and this angle in here, right? This one in here was 26.7 degrees. So that's good, and that works fine. We could also, at this stage, have used 4.3, 2.6, and this angle here. Or lastly, we're going to use 48 degrees. To find the area, we use this side and we use this side. So we're always looking for the big idea of the included angle. So guys, I can tell that I've already done 10 minutes and I haven't gone through more than one question, but I'm going to stop here and do one question per video, even if that means that you've got a little bit more watching to do. Some of you need to now go back to the Walker book and pick out some individual practice ones on both the sine rule and the cosine rule. So I'll chug my way through questions 2, 3, 4, and 5 this afternoon. If you've got any questions on this and you can't match up with the numbers that I'm getting, can you please send me an email if you're in my class, in Miss Goudra's class, and we will help you with it next week. Thanks for watching.